Hello and welcome, everybody. Big Three Sports Talk Show coming back at you. Nate Martin, Ion Shaw. I'm Kieran Costa. We're all back together this week after Ion took last week off, and we have a lot to talk about. Let's jump right into it. This day in sports history, Ion Shaw.
This day in sports history, one of the more legendary trades in the last 5 years or so. NBA superstar LeBron James agrees to a 4-year, $154 million deal with the LA Lakers. He goes from the Cavs all the way to the nice places in LA. And honestly, I still remember where I was at the time. I'm sure a lot of basketball fans remember there was a big controversy in Laker Nation on, should we be getting LeBron, because people were, threatened, obviously, that he'd surpass certain players. There was a lot of backlash towards him, but in the end, he did end up winning us a championship. Well, we're all very grateful for that. It was great to see that move. When I was in Reno in a swimming pool when I found that out. It was crazy.
It was similar for me when I found out that Kevin Durant signed with the Warriors, because I was also in a swimming pool. And then my dad was just like, yo, KD signed. And I was just like, oh my goodness. Yeah, what an upgrade for LeBron moving from Cleveland to Beverly Hills.
Yeah, not too shabby.
Not too shabby, I'd have to say. That leads us to player of the week, which I'm taking this week, and I'm gonna have to give it to Chris Paul. 41 points in game 6 to win the series for the Suns. 7 for 8 from 3-point from beyond the arc, which is insane. I didn't believe that when I saw the stat, but it makes complete sense if you watch the game. This is also coming off of him having COVID. So it's great to see him doing well after that and leading his Phoenix Suns to the NBA championship in his first finals appearance. And let's go right into the rest of the show, starting off with, this is something we forgot to mention last week, but feel like it's important to mention. New Zealand beats India in the Test World Championship in cricket. Rain delayed.
Game ruined by rain, though. First 3 days. First day was just a wash. Next 2 days called early because of light. They had to add a 6th day. It was overall a mess. I think ICC made a poor decision by putting it in England. We knew it was going to be raining. They did it anyway, and we saw a wet pitch really affect the play and even shorten it on most of the days. I'm disappointed the ICC in choosing England for this test.
It makes sense. It made sense doing it in England, though, because it was home of cricket. It's summer in England right now, and they couldn't predict that it was going to be rain because they decided.
It's England, so
it's England. It's going to rain.
Yeah, that's fair. But like, where else are you going to do it in that summer? Because it's like winter in India, Australia, New Zealand, that sort of thing. So the only places that's summer.
West Indies
would be a good pick.
But they don't have I don't feel like they have a big enough stadium and large enough populations of Kiwis or Indians in the Windies. So, but I would have been pretty hyped to have a bunch of people fly out to the Windies to watch some tests. But congratulations to the Kiwis. Massive L for all three of us, really, because India lost for both of you guys, and seeing New Zealand win as an Australian is unfortunate. Let's move on to the Euro tournament quarterfinals. Are going to be approaching starting tomorrow, but let's just give a quick recap of the knockout stage. First game of the knockout stage, Denmark continues their streak of scoring 4 goals by blowing out the Welsh. Wales got a red card in that match. Denmark doing it all for Christian Eriksen, which is great to see. Italy wins an extra time thriller against Austria. Had a bit of a scare when Austria scored around the 70th minute, got ruled off offsides. Italy scores 2 in the first extra time period, and Austria gets one back in the 116th minute, but it's not enough to force penalties. Then the next game on that Sunday, the Czech Republic stunned the Netherlands without their best center back for the tournament, and without their second best center back for much of the second half. The Netherlands lose 2-0 to the Czechs, led by Patrick Schick's all-star performance. He's having one of the best tournaments so far.
I'm going to disagree. I think that loss happened in the 52nd minute when De Ligt was sent off with a red card. I think that right there changed the whole course of that match.
Obviously, but then also Patrick, you can't. I feel like you can't discredit the Czech Republic, and we'll get into that a little bit more when we move on to our prediction segment. Belgium beats Portugal after a Thorgan Hazard goal. Portugal looked like the better team, gonna be honest, but Belgium gets one out of that. Did you want to say something?
I mean, I figured I could just, well, the rest of the games were also like Spain, Croatia, 5-3 goals, really high scoring game there. France, Switzerland.
That
I
Monday
really
was
wanted to talk
just
about this one.
I know.
nonstop
I will
good
get to that.
stuff.
We'll get to that. But I just want to say that Monday, June 28th, will go down in soccer history. That is one of the best days in soccer. The two of the best games I've seen. Both of them extra time thrillers. 3 goals in regular time, with Croatia scoring 2 in the last 5 minutes of play to force extra time, and then Spain scoring 2 in extra time. Alvaro Morata being the hero for the Spanish. And then Switzerland, France, and the upset of the century. Switzerland beats their neighbors on penalty shootouts after Kylian Mbappe, the wonder kid, has his penalty saved by Jan Sommer. And an insane game.
Pogba might have scored the goal of the tournament in that match.
Yeah, I think it's either him or Schick, with Schick's 50-yard strike against the Czech Republic. So yeah, let's talk about that game real quick. France, Switzerland. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, Nate brought up a good point in a comparison between Kylian Mbappe and Ben Simmons.
I said this before the show.
Yeah, right before the show, he was talking about it, where Simmons, he plays great, through the regular season, just like how Mbappe plays great through the previous games as well. But, in games that matter, he doesn't show up. In this sense, this goal that he missed.
Ion's not doing the full comparison, correct?
I want to disagree with you. He showed out in the World Cup final.
I know, Kieran. My point is that Ben Simmons and Kylian Mbappe both had insane big moments on the screen where they first came onto the scene. For Kylian Mbappe, it was his World Cup where he scored a ton of goals for France, led them to World Cup triumph. For Ben Simmons, it was Rookie of the Year and performing well enough to get a 5-year, $177 million extension. And they've played great in the regular season. Mbappe has consistently been a good player for PSG and the French national team. But in big games, Kylian Mbappe choked in the UEFA Champions League final and choked in this game in the Euros. He did not have a good tournament. He didn't score any goals. He was not playing that. He did not have a good tournament. And then Ben Simmons, he did not have a good playoffs. Did not come up when he needed to. He felt unconfident in his shot. And then when it came to the biggest matter to the most important time, when you basically get a free shot at goal and a free throw, they both choked. Ben Simmons chokes at the free throw line. Mbappe chokes from the penalty spot. I think it's a very apt comparison, Kieran.
I think Mbappe is much better than Ben Simmons, and his road to get back to stardom is very easy.
Yeah, I think that Mbappe will have a better bounce back than Ben Simmons.
I do as well.
I think this will give him, a kind of light of fire under his belly in this sense. I think it'll drive him to improve a bit more this performance, because that was truly disappointing for the French.
Kylian Mbappe wasn't terrible in the Champions League final. He just wasn't great. It was a 1-0 win for Bayern Munich.
PSG needed Mbappe that game, and he didn't come up. But this is gonna be good fire for the French team to come back next year in Qatar. England versus Germany. It's coming home. It is coming home. England beats Germany 2-0 after Raheem Sterling and Harry Kane score 2. Thomas Muller choked in front of basically a wide open net. And a massive win for England. They get this massive hump off of their they get this massive, scar on the history of English soccer, where they haven't been able to beat the Germans in knockout play in massive tournament games. They finally get that off their chest in a statement victory, and now they have a very easy path to the finals that we'll get to in a second. And then final game of the round of 16, Ukraine beats Sweden on a very clutch goal in the
120 plus 1.
Artem Dovbyk scores a massive goal for the Ukrainians to set up a matchup with England in the quarterfinals. So let's get to predicting these quarterfinals. Spain, Switzerland, who do we have?
I'm gonna take Switzerland, and I think I'll let Nate explain this one. But Kieran, who do you have?
I'm gonna take Spain. Spain scored 5 goals in their last 2 matches. We saw that Switzerland's riding the hot hand. Yes, they upset the French. And Spain looked very shaky the last 7 against Croatia, but that team bounced back quickly. Alvaro Morata, I expect to see 1 or 2 goals out of him against Switzerland. I'm gonna ride Spain. They've had a strong offense in the last 2 matches, 5 apiece. Obviously, I'm sticking with Spain.
But I feel like this is two very, very interesting teams because the Swiss have also proven that they can score goals. They've scored 3 goals in the last 2 matches and playing in a very, very tricky group. But both teams' defenses have looked very shaky. The goalkeepers have come up big when they needed them to, but they've also let in a couple easy goals. I feel like this is a coin flip for me. Originally, before the show, I was feeling Switzerland, but I think I'm leaning more towards Spain now, just because I like what the Spanish midfield has been creating at times. I think they're going to wear down the Swiss with possession soccer, which is it's going to be I think it's going to be a dramatic game, a lot of goals. But in the end, if it comes down to something like PKs or an extra time, I trust Spain more than I trust Switzerland. Let's move on to the biggest game of the tournament so far, arguably Belgium versus Italy, 2 of the best teams in the world right now. And I'm leaning with the Italians. I said this was one of my favorite. I said the Italians were my favorite team at the beginning of the tournament, and I still like that. I was like one of the only people that were riding the Italians really hard at the beginning, but now everyone has them as their clear favorites. And I'm happy to be on that bandwagon. I'm going to stay on that bandwagon. I have the Italians beating the Belgians by a goal.
Yeah,
I agree with you. I'm also going to go a 1-goal difference with Italy. I'm going to say 2-1. I like what we've seen from Italy. Yes, they gave us a scare against Austria. And if there was no VAR this round, could look very different for the Italians. But just a hair offsides for Austria in the minute 72 goal. Italy obviously comes back and wins it in extra time. I think Italy, they've looked like the best team in the tournament. Belgium's old and banged up. I'm sticking with the Italians.
Yeah, I'm gonna take Italy here as well.
And a big concern is that Kevin De Bruyne, injury concerns, questionable for the match tomorrow. The Czech Republic versus the Danes. I had the Danes. I had Denmark going to the semifinals. Originally, it's going to stay that way. I'm taking Denmark to beat the Czech Republic, but do not count the Czech Republic out because people have counted them out before, and they've beaten teams like the Netherlands, like Scotland, and I'm not going to count them out because they have Patrick Schick is a threat on goal.
I'm also going to go with Denmark, but I'm a bit worried about Kasper Schmeichel. I expected him to be a top 3 keeper in this tournament, and he has not been as good as I expected. He's letting a goal in every match, and a few ones that I think he should have stopped. And I think we agree that he should have been a bit better than he's been. So that's the only concern I have with Denmark, especially facing Schick. But I'm gonna say the Danes will hold out.
I'm gonna be taking the Czech Republic here. As Nate said before, you can never ever count them out. They've been quite a team this tournament. They've been very consistent overall, and they're not exactly a super high scoring team, but I feel like they have the heart and the drive to kind of edge out this game by at least I'm thinking it will be a 1-goal difference for this victory if the Czech Republic were to win here.
Finally, Ukraine versus England. I don't think you can count out Ukraine here just because
England has choked in the big moments in major tournaments time and time again.
But I think it could definitely be under threat here with Ukraine plays great counterattacking soccer.
Yarmolenko,
Zinchenko, Yarmolenko, as you mentioned, a lot of threats on Ukraine. But I feel like Gareth Southgate has got something working here with the 3 Lions. People questioned him all the time. They were like, why the hell is he playing 5 at the back? Why has he been starting Calvin Phillips this entire tournament? Why is he going with Bukayo Saka over Grealish, Foden, etc.? And he's proven them wrong every single time. And I feel like he's going to do something really weird against Ukraine, and it's going to work. I think Shevchenko has no match for Southgate in this situation. I think Southgate's going to win this game off of tactics alone. Obviously, England still got a very talented squad, but we know they can choke at times.
I think England will win this one. Yes, they have a history of choking, but at the same time, I'm going to put my faith in Harry Kane here. They've come this far already. Yes, they've choked in big moments, but I don't think that that's gonna happen this time. They're still a very, very solid team. They have a very high scoring offense, so I think that they could edge this game out as well. Obviously, don't count out Ukraine.
Yeah,
because
I agree. I'm taking the English as well, but I'd watch this game. A lot of people said Sweden Ukraine would be boring. We saw that wasn't true. I'd keep an eye on this game.
I always knew that was going to be a very exciting game. I think I would say every single knockout game has been exciting. It has had a lot of drama with it, because even the ones that were blowouts and looked boring, like the Denmark, Wales, or Czech Republic, Netherlands, both of those games had red cards added to the drama of the game, which has been really exciting. Let's move on to the NBA playoffs. Conference final season with the Phoenix Suns securing their spot to represent in the Western Conference in the NBA Finals. Congratulations to Phoenix. This is a town that has deserved a team like this, and you saw how passionate the fans were when the team got back from LA.
Obviously, you don't count out big performers in that series. Reggie Jackson and Paul George both went crazy. Paul George, amid the pandemic piece slander, he shows up. He drops 41 in one game. He was dropping above 30, I think, every single game in this series. He played out of his mind. You know, it's a disappointment for the Clippers to lose 4-2, especially because Reggie Jackson also was playing out of his mind. He was I think third in most points in the playoffs right now, or I think something along those lines. But the Clippers played with.
Real quick, Paul George averaged 27 points in 41 minutes through this playoffs.
Yeah, he had the most minutes out of everybody. Second was Devin Booker. So this series was one to watch, definitely. And obviously there's a lot of flack on both sides. Obviously, you know, there's a lot of slander towards Chris Paul. While he did play out of this world, he has gotten a reputation for not only being a flopper in this series, but also getting crossed by Paul George twice. Additionally, Patrick Beverley, I'm sure people saw this last night. Him and Chris Paul had some weird altercation, and Beverley, totally unsportsmanlike, just shoved him, got ejected. There's a lot of chirping between the benches. So it was a very high intensity series overall. I think that Phoenix deserved to go to the finals this year with all the hard work they've put in. No one was really betting on them to go to the finals this year, but they are. Booker hopefully plays out of his mind in the finals as well.
I said I'm usually the first one to defend Paul George. And in many ways he did wear off that pandemic P name, the playoff P. But in other ways, he didn't. I mean, missing every single shot in the fourth quarter in a close game 5 where the Clippers could have easily taken the lead. I think he missed like 6 or 7 shots in a row when it was a 1-point game.
And then missed the free throws as well.
Missed the free throws in game 2. In game 3, game 2.
Clippers won game 5 though, so.
Yeah, it might have been it was game 4, I think it was, because it was the low scoring one that was just slugfest, which is just really unfortunate. So Paul George, super interesting with that. But the main thing with that's interesting about this series is that what are the Clippers going to do with Kawhi? Because Kawhi is going to opt out. We know this because that means he's going to get more money and he has the ability to test the open market. Teams like the Heat, the Mavericks, and the Knicks are very keen on him. Other teams, I am sure, are going to be willing to make cap space work, such as the Warriors. So what do we think is going to happen with Kawhi Leonard? Is he going to re-sign with the Clippers or go somewhere new?
Ashley Kieran, go ahead first. Go ahead.
I think he's going to re-sign. And here's why. This team without Kawhi Leonard was 2 wins away from the NBA Finals. I think with Kawhi Leonard, they win this series. And Kawhi Leonard saw that. Where is he going to go with a much better chance to make the NBA Finals than here? His team was 2 wins away without him. You add him, he's definitely a +2 win player. I think he's gonna opt out and then leverage that into a bigger contract with the Clippers.
I agree with you, Kieran, but I don't think it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be a bigger contract and salary, but it's gonna be a short-term deal. I'm thinking 2 years, 2 or 3
Yeah.
years.
It would
No, okay,
player
I'm
option.
thinking
Player
one or two, maybe player option for
Like
the
something
one.
like a 1+1 with a player option, just to show that as that, hey, I'm still interested in playing with you guys, but if we aren't good enough to like win a game,
Supporting
series
cast
next
stepped
year,
up too. Reggie Jackson, Terrence Mann.
and you're gonna hope to keep those players around. But if he is gonna leave, I see him going to Miami.
Personally, I see him re-signing as well based off of everything that was just said. But also, I want to point out the fact that if he was to leave, I don't think he'd go to the East. Personally, the East has become much stronger this season. Yes, injuries have plagued the league in general, but the Bucks showed out. The Nets are still residing in the East. So are the Hawks, who are also playing well. You have teams like Philadelphia, who should be back next season. Even for Christ's sake, the Knicks also got in there, as well as the Celtics, who are a big
Yeah,
competition.
the Knicks could
Kawhi
easily
was
get
to-
Kawhi.
If Kawhi was to go to the Heat, or let's say even maybe if he goes back to Toronto, the teams that he would face, I don't think that would happen, obviously not. But I'm just saying him going back to the East in general, I just don't think it would be as smart a move. He has to really think this out also because he is getting a lot out of the Clippers right now. If he was to move to another team in the West and in hopes of winning a championship, it would have to be a team like, I don't know, Dallas.
Dallas can make it work financially.
Maybe even Portland.
Denver's
Denver
one.
as I don't.
I actually like Portland now hearing it because Chauncey Billups is the new head coach of the Trailblazers, controversially as well, but we're not going to get into that. But he could follow his former assistant coach, someone who I'm assuming like a lot of the players are very fond of, former player, a legend in the league.
Then
I like that. That's a good shout.
Then Portland would because then Portland, it would also be very beneficial.
That's the
for
piece Portland needs.
Yeah, that's the piece Portland needs.
They would have to probably trade.
They would have to give up CJ McCollum.
Yeah, they would have to give up
CJ McCollum and a few players, maybe a pick or two.
Yeah, well, not even that, but like. Yeah. I mean, maybe they could do a sign and trade with the Clippers. It's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out. Let's move over to the Eastern Conference really, really quick. Who do we have winning that series? It is currently tied up 2-apiece. Trae Young and Giannis both suffering injuries. Who do we have winning?
Giannis doubtful. Trae Young probable for Game 5 tonight. I'm going with the Hawks. Since when the Timberwolves didn't make the playoffs, I from day one I wanted the Hawks to win. I'm sticking with my boys. Trae Young hopefully comes back, even if he's just 50% today. He should be fully healthy by Game 6. It's back in Milwaukee actually, but without Giannis, I want the Hawks.
Because it's game.
Yeah, it would go back to Milwaukee.
Yeah.
I'm also going to be taking the A here. I think that personally, rule out Trae Young, rule out Giannis Antetokounmpo. Both star players of their teams, both injured right now. Let's say that Trae Young doesn't play tonight and Giannis is also not playing tonight, right? Let's say that scenario happens. The Hawks without Trae Young, I believe, are a better team than the Bucks without Giannis Antetokounmpo. Chris Middleton shows out. Chris Middleton has showed out in the fourth quarter last game and Game 2, but he is not consistent throughout the games. I believe that the young core with Bogdanovich, John Collins,
Herder, Capella,
and the solid Danilo Gallinari, I think that this could be quite a threat when it comes to the Bucks without Giannis Antetokounmpo. I mean, I don't think that most Bucks players have played to their full potentials. Wow, I'm completely forgetting names.
Jrue Holiday.
Yes, Jrue Holiday. Thank you. I don't think he's lived up to all the expectations, to all the hype. Some Bucks players have been playing good. I don't think Chris Middleton can do what he does every single night.
Let me just say this. You guys said, they came out like the Atlanta Hawks came out in the second half without when Giannis wasn't playing. They came out in the first half as well. They were blowing out the Bucks when they still had Giannis, which is insane to me.
Giannis left in a 4-point game.
Yeah, that's true. But like they still had like a double-digit lead when Giannis was in the game. They brought it back a little bit, but the Hawks still looked like they were in the driving seat. And yeah, I'm surprised all three of us are on the same page. But I'm taking the lower-seeded Hawks, the underdogs throughout this entire series and the entire playoffs. They have gone on an insane round. Trae Young is the villain of the league.
It was so nice to see the villain of the league make it this far. I mean, he took over New
he
York.
wasn't ever the villain of the league until this playoffs. Until
He,
he
yeah,
this
he
playoffs,
became
because
the
that's
villain of the league. This
that's just
playoffs.
because of New York. New York City hates Trey Young with a
Yeah.
passion.
Dude,
he just got past. He owns New York City. He owns Philadelphia. He's about to own Milwaukee.
Who wants to own Milwaukee?
He's on full on carnage. He's like, okay, I'm gonna start off big market, New York, Philadelphia. We're gonna go right into the Midwest, Milwaukee, and hopefully they can take on the Suns. And that's gonna be a very, very fun series.
That's a fun series.
Two of the most exciting young teams in the league with some great veteran leadership and rookie head coaches. Really gonna be.
Nate McMillan's not a rookie head coach.
Well, I know he's not a
Young-
rookie head
young
coach, but like
coach.
first year with a new team and still not even the head coach, interim head coach. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching today's show. For Kieran Costa, Anshaw, I've been Nate Mott, and you've been watching the Big Three Sports Talk Show. We'll see you next week.